on the top.
There we go. Perfect. All right. All right. Good to see that people are still willing to brave the stairs and the elevator. For this session, we've got the talented Yogi. She's going to talk us through how you secure the different phases of the generative AI lifecycle. I'm really bummed out because I'd like to see this live. I'm going to run upstairs now and do my own session, but we're recording. So here you go, Yogi.
Thank you, James. Good morning, everyone.
Put my phone on. No. Yep.
Yeah, sorry. Sorting out technical issues since morning. Yeah, all good now. How are you all today? Yeah, I know. I was too scared to take lift. When I was here, I saw all the drama in any which ways. I'm always scared to take lifts just because of that reason. So welcome to Azure Bootcamp 2024. This is a very nostalgic feeling for me because I was here in the last bootcamp sitting, asking questions. And I really love bootcamps. I have learned a lot attending different sessions. And today I'm here sharing my experience with all of you. So it feels great. It's a pleasure to have you all here. Here are our 2024 sponsors. And obviously, I work for Microsoft. So I would say doing Azure things or doing things Azure way is what I really love. And I will be talking about that quite a bit in my presentation. Who am I? Yogi Srivastava. I work at Microsoft as Principal Software Engineer in Security domain. My passions, music, singing, security, my pets and family. And I'm not singing today in this session. Controversial cloud opinion. There are many. Here are just few. Bicep is good, really good. Don't use Terraform, use Bicep. Today we are talking about securing the phases of Gen AI or generative AI as we call it life cycle. It's an approach and yeah, I'll take you down that journey which has really helped me with my customers, with my peers. So it's an experience that I'm sharing and I'm sure it's going to benefit all of you. So before we begin, I would like to know from you what brings you here today? Like what's your interest? Why you are in this session? There are multiple sessions, I know there are different tracks, but what exactly is your passion? Why are you here today?
It's like a lot of security risks with generative AI, so all the training data, so we want to know how to make it.
Very good. So yeah, so we are talking about risk, about generative AI and how we can make it more secure, which is I think on minds of many people who are in the AI journey. Anybody else who wants to give it a shot? Okay, so we'll take that as an input. So AI is transforming the world, I would say, not just technology or industry. It is transforming humanity. So if you look around, you will see there are users of AI. There's general public who are using applications like chatbot just to try out what this technology is, what is this all about. Then there are business decision makers in different industries who are in their AI journey, either embarking on an AI journey or they have already taken a decision to use AI in some form and shape to enhance their business use cases or posture. Then you have students and researchers who are learning about it, who are researching in this technology domain. And then you have people like me who are trying or aiming to secure AI usage, AI infrastructure, and applications being part of an enterprise out of a passion. Okay, now, sorry, I'll be asking many questions just to understand my audience a bit better. If you don't want to answer, that's fine. Silence is gold. So next one, why security is so important for you, and you? Any guess? Anybody?
Privacy, business disruption, yeah, kind of thing.
Nine.
And more money, yeah, you can lose money. If
Yep.
your company can lose money.
Yeah, money, fines, business disruption. Very good point.
Privacy.
Sir. Sorry. Yeah, you go first, please.
Yeah, business reputation.
Business reputation. Yep. Yep.
Yeah, lot of risks, especially when you're training models with some data, you don't want that data to be created in some way.
Excellent. So we are talking about threats, we are talking about impacts, we are talking about impact to businesses and fines. So yeah, those are some of the impacts. That's why security is so important, not just with AI. The impacts to businesses could be reputational damage, financial damage, cancellation of licenses, big fines, and we all know the Optus story. So sorry Optus, but yeah, I have to take that example. So that's why security is important for everyone, for me, for everybody around us. Why securing generative AI is so important for humanity. So I'm using the word humanity here. So why it's so important for humanity? Anybody?
And in the sense that when we are giving AI more agency and their decisions are related to how it will impact the whole humanity. So if we decide let AI decide if that power station will go up or down, we need to care about the impact of the humanity, not just for the business side.
Yes, excellent. That's,
Self-preservation.
yeah.
Survival.
Yeah, yeah. It's like, so if I have to say it differently, I would say it's like, it looks like AI is taking over humanity. Excessive agency, that's what it looks like. It looks like a movie scene, to be very honest. Yeah, that was a very good answer. So why humanity? With what all we discussed till now, we want to focus on securing generative AI to reduce the risk associated with the increase in the integration of AI in our daily lives. So we are talking about humanity, people, and how AI is integrating in our daily lives. With that, we move on to next slide. So thanks for all your responses. We know impact, we understand threats, we understand risk. So here is something from my experience, tried and tested, and I call it power of 3. And we will go into generative AI life cycle, but this is very important for the approach that I take with my customers in ensuring, their generative AI life cycle is secured. And I call it power of 3. It's not with generative AI, but this is a mindset, a approach for security traditionally. So there are 3 things if an individual who is on this journey of security does, there would be an outcome that would be beneficial for whosoever that individual or organization is engaging with. So let's come back. Point 1, understand your customer. So if you are consulting, if you are an engineer, if you are a business analyst, understand your customer. Understand your customer's industry, regulations that apply to that industry, and compliance. If you are business, understand more about your industry, understand if there is any change in landscape of regulations or compliance. Second, understand your customer scenarios. So understanding customer is not enough. Customer might have number of customer scenarios. So you have to understand what is a specific scenario or problem that you are trying to solve. What is the existing security posture, where they are at in their security journey, and what technology they are using for their IT or security, for instance. And then know your strengths. When you know your strengths, you will know your weaknesses as well. So you have to know, or you should be aware of your security risk. Like, it was a very good start for this session because all of you are aware of risk. Most of you are aware of the risk, the impacts, mitigations. and how successfully you can apply your skills to solve a customer scenario. So knowing is not enough, understanding scenario is not enough, understanding risk is not enough, knowing mitigations is not enough. We can write literatures about it, I can write like many articles about it, but then how successfully I'm able to apply, that really matters, and I call this power of 3. This is an example. So I was with bank for a decade or so. So bank is my client or customer. They are into banking and financial services. They are regulated. We are in Australia. So they are regulated by APRA, PCI DSS, an example. Their business case is improving the customer service, and they have an existing security posture, and here are some, some of the technology used in their network, in their ecosystem. And then strengths, threats, mitigations, products, toolings, and ultimately due diligence. So these are my strengths. If I'm going to bank to solve a particular problem for them, I will understand what threats are relevant to that business case, what mitigations are currently available, what tools and products I could use to help customer build those controls in order to mitigate those security risks. And ultimately, I'll use my due diligence, because there are many products, there are many toolings, but we have to meet customer where they are in their security journey, which is very important. We just can't say use these 10 new products. They might not be ready for it. It might not be a cost-effective solution for them. So this power of 3 is very interesting when applied over any life cycle of a product or a technology. It really helps you to develop that right approach in solving the customer problems. With that, we move on to our national security framework. It's good to know this, and again, this goes back to know your strengths, know where you are, know where your industries are, know in which industries your customer operate. So in Australia, we have Australian Signals Directorate, known as ASD, and it's a pivotal component of Australia's national security framework. Australian Cyber Security Centre actually falls under ASD, and they have very recently published a guidance on engaging with AI. And then we have, there was a summit in UK in 2023 on AI safety, and there were, it was a global focus, and many countries agreed to, work on a framework or a guidance for their AI safety. Thank you. And then we have number of acts and legislations in Australian government in legislation like Security Legislation Amendment for Critical Infrastructure, Online Safety Act 2021, and there is a recent government announcement in January of 2024 to start consultation on new regulatory framework for high-risk AI application, safety guardrails around AI, and for National AI Centre in Australia to develop voluntary AI safety standards. So it's good to know that government is doing something, because ultimately it will lead to some sort of framework, some sort of standards that industry operating in Australia have to abide by. Any questions till now? No? Okay, good. So we'll move on to the next one, and this is very interesting. So before we look into generative AI life cycle, let's just take an example of a factory, a manufacturing. So what happens in a factory? Factory also has a life cycle, by the way, and we can correlate. And again, not knowing my audience, I thought it would be relevant to have this slide here so that people can, draw examples, compare what we are talking next. So in a factory, we source some raw materials, process those raw materials in a number of processing pipelines, deploy those intermediate products, package them, and it's available for the consumer to consume or use. Taking this example and now replaying it in IT or information technology world. Here we go. What would be some of our raw materials when we are constructing a software or developing something? It would be data, algorithms, and in AI or machine learning, it would be existing models, code tools. What would be a processing pipelines? These will be a software pipelines, development pipelines, testing, quality, you name it. Then we'll have a deployment pipeline to deploy those. And then that will be available via application that users can interact with and consume those application features. And users may provide feedback based on their experience with the application. So with that, we move on to generative AI lifecycle. So in generative AI, which is a form of AI which is very creative, it can generate content based on what it has been trained on. It can learn, it can produce new content, and that is where it's very innovative. It's helpful for us, but then there are attackers or malicious actors out there who would really like to take advantage of any good thing that we do. And when I say we, it's us as humans. We try to improve, we want to improve our healthcare, we want to improve medical diagnosis, we want to have researches done at a speed with processing this vast amount of data, and AI is helping there, it can help there, but then there are people out there who really want to disrupt it. So coming back to the life cycle and going back to the factory example, we have data preparation stage in generative AI. It has to process data. If we are creating a model, it will be created based on data. It has to learn a lot about its data. So we have data preparation stage, which produces a data in a form that can be consumed by the next stage of the generative AI life cycle. And that's what we call experimentation and evaluation, where we are experimenting with a model and evaluating its responses, whether those responses are really good for my use case or not, or I need to do something else. Once we have that right model with the right set of instructions, right set of responses, and when I say right, it's sampling. So we have done experimentation and we find it right. We deploy it to the production, let a user use it and gather some feedback. And here's the feedback cycle. We gather feedback, we further improve our experimentation or change our data sets to further improve our responses. So this is the life cycle, and it's a very security view. Why? So let's focus on what assets or what sort of security we need to build in at each of these stages. So if you look at data preparation, before that, all of this works on infrastructure. So infrastructure is there, and traditional security has not gone away. We have to still follow all those good things that we used to do. If we look at the life cycle, and if we want to follow the security guidelines across the life cycle, the best security guidelines that we have known wherever we are, in data preparation stage, we have to focus on data security. We have to ensure that the source of our data is secure, we are processing it securely, storing it securely. Experimentation and evaluation, yes, data is there, network infrastructure, everything is there, but then we have model. We need to ensure the model which will be used for a business use case, for helping with a business scenario, is secure. And then we have to securely deploy the models and follow our good application security guidelines, infrastructure security, to achieve the best outcome for a business, for our customers, for ourselves. And in here is a very special, like securing the supply chain. Supply chain is a very hot topic these days, how you're sourcing your packages, the data for supply chain. So now there is a new element to it. We have models. Now models are also part of supply chain, and they were always there with machine learning, but with AI we have to focus more. because of its vast reach. With that, we move on to data preparation phase. So in data preparation, we have number of data sources. These data sources go through some pre-processing, and there are pre-processing modules. They might cleanse the data, remove the duplicates, and then the outcome of it is a prepared data set. So I call it prepared or curated. It is prepared for that particular scenario to solve that particular business problem. So what are some of the threats at this stage? What we should be considering from security perspective? And one more thing, what's so important in this stage is the data. We have to focus on data without losing the traditional security guidelines, components. We have to still follow that. So data is very important asset in this stage. Data could be poisoned, which may result in uncertain model behavior, because I'm creating my model on data. If a business who is creating their own model, although it will be very expensive process, if I'm consuming data, training my model, fine tuning, data is an important asset. It can be poisoned, resulting in confidentiality, integrity impacts, and obviously model behavior will be very uncertain. Data could be exfiltrated, and data leakage could happen. That may result in data theft. So what are some of the controls, or what are some of the security configurations that we could do at this stage, agnostic of what products, toolings we are using? Because we are talking at the conceptual level. We have to apply these concepts to wherever, in whichever industry we are, whatever tooling, products we are using, or if we are innovative, we can even develop code to implement these controls. So I guess this is very important for everybody. So we have to identify the sensitive data or discover data, which is data discovery. We have to classify data to the level of required security controls, which is data classification. And then if you identify there is sensitive data and your business and technology is not ready to take the risk of having that footprint of sensitive data across your processing pipelines, then at this stage itself you have to identify and mask it. And then data isolation in multi-tenant applications. This is very important for big organizations. They have number of departments. Each of those departments will have their own business use cases where they will use AI to solve that particular problem, and those data will be at different sensitivity levels. So we have to segregate them. So for example, customer service data, solving customer service, improving customer service responses, and then you have data from home loan processing department, which you cannot co-place with the customer experience or feedback data. So, and you have to apply AI on all these specific data sets and improve that particular business response for that particular business unit. So that's why data isolation is very important. And then cryptography, which is essentially protect your data at rest, encrypt at rest, encrypt when you're transferring the data. Identity and role-based access control. So identify the data sources, use identity to define who the users are, who will access the system, especially around data preparation, who the users or services are who will interact with each other to process the data through the pre-processing pipelines, and what roles and permissions these services and users will have in order to perform their task. So it's not a free world, like any user can just log in and trigger the pipeline and go, any service can communicate to any service. That's not very secure. So even in a house, we have a doorbell. We always like see who is at the door. That's identity to me. I want to know who is coming to my house. So I want to know who is accessing my data. If I'm a business owner, I would really, or technology owner, I would like to see who is accessing my assets, what they are doing on my assets, and at the end of the day, what impact it had. With that, we move on to experimentation and evaluation. So here you have your data set, prepared data set, and then you select a foundational model for your business use case. So for instance, you can use chat model, or you can use completions model. There are various models out there depending upon your use case. And then you do prompt engineering on it. So essentially you look at what will be some of the prompt variants of system prompt or user prompt, and these are not user input. So user input prompt is very different to system prompt and user example user prompt. So the output of this particular phase will be the prompt variants. So what could be some of my example system prompts, example user prompts that I can create as a template and use it with my application when my users are typing something in the chat as a prompt input. So 3 different things here, and I'll take a pause for questions.
You said the user prompt is different from the user input. Can you just throw some light on that?
Yeah, sure. So user input or user input prompt is what user types in the chat window, for which user is supposed to get a response. When we do prompt engineering, there is something known as meta prompts. Meta prompts can be both system prompts and example user prompts. So it's not what user is actually typing in the chat window. It's an example user prompt, example system prompts created as a template after a lot of experimentation, evaluation to influence the behavior of model to respond grounding to the scenario for the particular business use case. Yeah.
So in the same way, can you poison prompts in different prompts? So future it creates kind of backdoors in your model. Is it possible to do this kind of attack? If bad actor can poison prompts themselves, that will come as meta prompts to be specific.
Yeah. So, yeah, it's a very good question. Yes, let's look at it. So, poisoning prompt. So model could be poisoned. Prompt has injection attacks. Backdoor, so there is something known as indirect prompt injection, where a malicious attacker actually compromises the system prompts or example user prompts, which are my meta prompts I'm using to influence the output or the response from my model. So that's indirect prompt injection, because my system prompts or meta prompts are compromised. So my model, on which I have done a lot of prompt engineering to come with those best 15, 16 prompt variants, which is a combination of my meta prompts, is not behaving the way it was supposed to behave, because somebody from the back door has compromised my meta prompt. So that is indirect prompt injection. Poisoning is model poisoning. Does that answer your question?
Yes.
Yes, please.
I have a question from the data preparation part.
Yep.
So, keeping that AI aside, we still have that poisonous data in the traditional data model data preparation. So, what is the additional security that we need to consider when we are bringing AI into the picture? So, what are those? Can you just explain what is the additional security that we need to keep in mind?
Yeah, it's again a very good question. Something that in my experience and in my peers' experience, I think we are maturing as we are working with the customers to secure their AI use cases. It goes back to what kind of data is being used now versus what was used before. So there is a difference, and the amounts of data as well. So in the past, what were our data sources? Now we have this number of documents, images on which these models are trained, and when we are consuming a model from a provider, we are not aware of the data that it is trained on. We are further training that model based on another subset of data, maybe from the organization, to ground the response. So how it is different is, it's different in a way, if you look at the data structure, how your data structure is now, its semantics have changed. So when you store that data, you're storing the entire document, you're indexing. So I'm taking the example of LLM, which works on large language models, it processes a lot of text. The input data is text, documents. How are you storing those documents now versus how we used to do that before is there. So that's where the difference lies. Nothing from traditional data security has gone away, it exists. So if I take that example and build my response on that, so the way I look at it is, documents when stored in service like Azure Cognitive Service, Azure AI Search, documents will be indexed. So for a customer, okay, let's go back. In traditional world, we had database, we have table, rows, columns. It can be structured data, non-structured data. Now what we are observing is indexed based data in this data ecospace, using data stores like Azure Cognitive Service. So there is no longer like a table or a row. It's an indexed based search based on the minimal distance between two indexed based data sources. The minimal distance between them two will actually influence the model to pick up that in its response. So that's where it has changed. So now how it changes the security for data around AI, how you are indexing, what is your index strategy for your data, how are you writing the model API endpoint calls for a search query, how are you including that index, because now my filter is my index, now my filter has those additional filters which are part of the index structure itself. And not only that, so when we look at input validation, in prompt, how are we going to do input validation?
I think it depends on the models or the schema that you define.
Ye-
What are you validating against? What are you expecting? And what is the input?
Yep, correct. So
I think you need the AI to validate your input.
that's excellent answer. I think we'll slowly move towards that. But yes, so index and schemas and filters which are built on that. So I think what's changed in data is how you are constructing your data schema, how you are indexing, which is influencing your filters. So the maximum amount of filters you have on your search query will result in proximity of response, as well as it will prevent any open-ended searches. So what we want to prevent from security is open-ended searches. We want my search query to be appropriately indexed and my data to be isolated, stored in a way that no two departments or customers' data is indexed together. So that is where the difference is between how we used to approach data security traditionally and how we have to do it now. We have to think more how we are placing data which will be used for training, fine-tuning our models or performing prompt engineering.
Just one example if you can take on this. For example, you're scanning very sensitive documents. You want to understand the context of the document, but not the actual numbers. Can you talk through the filters to say, hide these numbers in my final model? Is this how it's done? Or, like, for example, are sensitive numbers, of contracts of in dollars. Can you tell model to hide this information in your filters or prompts?
Okay, so my question to you is, do you really want your model to access that level of information? Is that your business use case?
Because it explains the context of the document. There are a lot of interesting information, except the numbers. Numbers are sensitive, but the text is actually very good, and it is useful for my business case. But I don't want numbers to be there.
So I think my thinking is like to identify those numbers, you need to know those numbers, and for to know those numbers, you need to store those numbers, which makes it insecure anyway. So you're supposed to not know those numbers. Maybe know the pattern, like if it's a credit card number, you know the pattern, but that's about it. But yeah, open for your understanding.
No, no. So I guess there are multiple ways to look at this particular scenario. One way I could think of, so where exactly or who exactly should not see the numbers. I am training my model on sensitive information because that is my use case. So I am not going to filter sensitive information when I am training or fine tuning my model. So that's how I understand your scenario. So I'm not going to restrict my model, but what I want to restrict is when a response is being sent back, I want to filter it for some specifics, and that shouldn't be the numbers, all those good jazzy texts that can be sent as an output to the user, right? Yeah. So in that case, there's something known as content filtering before you send the response back to the user. You can custom build a logic to go through the response or have human in the loop because it's a sensitive information processing business use case. Have human in the loop to look at the response before it is sent to the end user. And again, looking back at this scenario, the sensitive use case scenarios are, in my experience, are limited within an enterprise. So that's not something for public. We have to identify users who will have access to that information. We have to build appropriate access controls for those users when accessing the, for instance, chat or LLM based application, so that only those users are entitled to receive that information. And to further filter that information, after we have done the authentication, authorization of that particular end user, we should look at some sort of content filtering, some sort of tool like we have a Microsoft Presidio, which is Python based tool. So it can actually do custom filtering based on your business use case. You can filter those additional things from your output and only send the output that your authenticated user is supposed to receive or see. Yeah, I'm sorry, we are doing a bit of solutioning here. Yeah, and we can talk more about it offline. Yeah, Colin.
I just want to respond to your question, sir. I feel like, for me anyways, an easy way to think about it is the responses are always non-deterministic. And so if you're taking a filtering approach, you're always going to have some kind of error on the response. So it's important in that case to, if you need 100% accuracy, to train the model using your data that is already filtered so you have some level of surety.
Well, yeah, it's sort of easy to say, but it requires a lot of time to prepare the data.
I don't disagree.
And usually what happens, companies put they take data from repositories of documents, just index everything, and basically very hard to do this there. But yeah, it's already a solution.
We can solution more. Okay, so shall we move on? Good, okay. So back to experimentation and evaluation. Model is, I think, an asset to secure here. Model could be poisoned, resulting in unexpected model behavior. We will access model using API endpoints. That API path could be used as API attack path, which can result in model theft, intentional system errors. And then in the experimentation evaluation, post experimentation and evaluation phase, for a particular business use case, there could be some custom code developed as plugins to perform some custom action, and if the plugins privilege escalation happens, then that can result in unauthorized system access. So these are some of the threats during experimentation, evaluation and plugging development phases. These are IT threats. What is intellectual property compromise in this case? Because data is trained on a model, model is trained on a data, and we don't know what was the source of that data when we are consuming a model. So we have to be very careful from where we are consuming the model. Is it open source? Open source has no guarantee that the data is not someone else's IP. So that's why I'm distinguishing between IT and IP. It's very important to source your models from enterprise, who can give some sort of agreement or surety that the IP is not a compromised IP, because that can lead your business using copyrighted information. So some of the controls in this phase are securing your model supply chain. If you are using Delhi model specifically, you can use Azure Content Credentialing feature, which is like an API call to understand the source of the image. You can build guardrails in prompt engineering, and we have spoken about that. Meta prompts, efficient search queries, that is something goes back to data. How are you writing your search query to your model? How are you invoking the endpoint? Follow zero trust, deny by default, least privilege, assume breach, harden your infrastructure, have secrets management lifecycle as a regular practice, have identity and access control using role-based access control model with right permissions for users and your services. So only right users interact to the systems that they are authorized to, and only services have right permissions to interact with each other. And at the end, your monitor. Never go away with monitor, because we can't always design everything so perfectly. Then model usage. So in model usage, and we have had a number of examples till now, a user is giving a prompt and you are receiving a prompt response. So this is where prompt injection attacks are more prominent, and then it can result in unexpected model behavior, denial of service, resulting in availability issues, model poisoning, membership inference, resulting in data confidentiality issues, attempt to model theft. Some of the controls here, and we are also talking about responsible AI, so have Azure Content Safety, which provides prompt shields for direct indirect injection, jailbreak detection, detection of classified information. So that's what I was talking about. So it's through content filtering, AI detection and response, have implement guardrails in your prompt engineering, identity and rollback, use responsible AI models to filter your responses. After you have received the response from the ChatGPT model or any other model, that like completions model, if you are using it for completions in a use case, and harden your infrastructure and have secrets lifecycle. So if I have to categorize threats based on the life cycle, I see that it's there in model development phase, deployment and usage. So there are threats during development and there are threats through use. Little bit now, that was about life cycle, what sort of threats you will foresee in generative AI life cycle when you are doing training, tuning, prompt engineering, and what sort of controls are available today that you could use for having a layered security control approach for wherever you are in your AI journey, end to end. Responsible AI, with AI, we have to talk about responsibility, we have to talk about fairness, reliability, safety, privacy, security, inclusiveness, transparency, accountability. These are 6 pillars of Microsoft Azure AI Responsible AI standard, and everything that Microsoft does in AI is around these 6 pillars, and this information is available on Microsoft Learn pages. So how it's implemented, so these are 6 pillars. So from tooling perspective, what's available is Azure Content Safety Service. Again, you can have content filters, guardrails, and responsible AI dashboard for data scientists to look at some of the red indicators, whether there was a deviation from any of these 6 pillars of responsible AI standard. And now there are some examples and demos. So there's a demo on jailbreak. If it's okay, can we move on to that? Or questions? Sorry, I'm just looking at how to share my screen because the settings have changed. Okay, here we go. Yeah. Okay, so here is the code from Azure Content Safety Service. So there are content safety filters and other filters like prompt injection detection, jailbreak detection, protected information detection. All these features are within the part of Azure Content Safety Service. We can invoke it using API endpoint, so they are available as packages, or else we can also use it through AI Studio. Now this can be done on any model, so not necessarily Azure. So here I already have a jailbreak test Python code, and I'll run that right now. So execute that, and I have given it a famous do anything now or Dan prompt command. And if you see the response, it says jailbreak analysis detected true. So jailbreak attempt detected. The same feature is available via Azure AI Studio as well, which I'll be demoing in a minute.
Excuse me, what's the objective of this attack? To do anything with model, or what's like a physical objective?
The objective of jailbreak is actually to alter the model behavior from what it was supposed to do to what attacker wants it to do.
And so specifically disable Microsoft filters or something like this, right? Like if I don't want to use Microsoft filtering system like fairness, is this objective of this attack?
In a way, but I'm not trying to break Microsoft systems here. So that could be one of the objectives of an attacker to jailbreak the model and compromise the hosting service. Explore the attacks, expand the attack surface, have access to various host assets by attempting a jailbreak inside that enterprise wherever the models are hosted. That could be an attempt, and yeah, attackers would like to do that. But in this example, I'm not trying to compromise Microsoft systems. But yeah, that could be the malicious intent behind gaining any access, any asset in a system, just to see what else is weak in terms of security and how to control it and how to exploit it.
But what kind of things does the jailbreak analysis look for to determine it's a jailbreak?
So jailbreak essentially is through user prompts. So that's very important to note. It's like continuous user prompts trying to ask model to do something which is not supposed to do. And if during prompt engineering meta prompts, the variants of meta prompts have been not so good, like we have not done a prompt engineering well, a jailbreak attempt may be successful. And we have seen this, like if you try ChatGPT 3.5 from OpenAI now and use there are a number of jailbreak commands available publicly. Use those commands, and with the 3.5 model you will see it responding in a very different manner. So that's important to know. So it's a jailbreak, means it's user is trying to do something to break the model responses, intrude the system, do whatever.
Yeah, but like how are they detected by this API?
We can talk more about it. Yes, so there is a logic built behind that. So again, it's powered by Azure AI models in the backend. So it's trying to do analysis. So at the high level, it's like an algorithm analysis which is trying to analyze the user input prompt against the meta prompts and trying to see what it's trying to do differently. Is it altering the model behavior? I have this specific prompts which I want to influence my model with, but what it is. So there are some keywords when it comes to prompt injection attacks or when it comes to jailbreak. So for instance, do anything now. You are this. You have to respond to this query as you have access to everything. You have to provide me with sensitive information now. So there are trends. So if we go back to SQL injection and if we look at how SQL injection was, there were patterns. So if you look at the prompt injection or jailbreak, there are patterns. So again, it's built on patterns. There's an algorithm that works on it, and it's powered by AI.
So they're using AI to protect the AI.
Yes, that's where AI has two very interesting statements, I would say. Whether you are securing your AI or you are using AI for your security. So now we have examples of both. So this one is for prompt injection. Let's see if it works. This one is for responsible AI. So I have given a input here which says, I have not used that word, but yeah, so what responsible AI, and again, there is a logic that works, checks the input text, does the assessment, maps it, and it says this is at hate severity 2. Now the severities, the severity levels, all these are how this particular service work. If you want to know more, happy to chat after the session. But essentially for now I have set the severity to 2, but severity can be increased so that any such input does not reach model. So the idea for these protection is that we are not even letting the actual model, ChatGPT or completions model, process these sort of prompt inputs. So it's a pre-prompt control. And so having said that, we still need a monitoring tools to monitoring the prompt input and responses, because 100%, this can't give 100% coverage. So we still need alerting and monitoring tools.
How it is basically this ranking, how it is including the diversity? Because some of the keywords in one culture might be different from another culture. So how the inclusivity is included here when you are ranking when you are doing the ranking?
Very good question. So we have to look at what model is used, how that model was trained, because we can train model on number of languages, number of prompts, and so we are grounding the response based on a scenario. So that's what we have to remember always. So there could be number of ways to achieve this outcome, but what model we are using, how we are grounding its responses, it's where the probability of its response being as we expect lies. And again, this is not 100%. This is pre-prompt. We still need monitoring and alerting around it.
Just to add to that, we have actually in our company, because we have support focus, and we do help customers for disaster recovery and everything. So we also we use AI to also tell our management like how the support is.
Yeah, I'm talking.
Because not everybody can do it all right, and I'm able to support it all. So we try to get a score out of every support interaction, so that it goes to the management, and we are using something like that. So initially when we started out, wherever it was reading disaster management, it was rating that support case as 0, saying that the support is disaster. Then we had to increase that model, saying that, like she said, where disaster is this, it comes with disaster document or disaster planning or anything of that sort, it's part of the support case, it's not a response from the customer. And then we create number. So that's something that I face in real life.
Very good example. Yeah, that's why incident workbooks and monitoring your prompt input, prompt responses, maturing on your workbooks and pattern matching is so important. With that, we are about time, and I don't want to take over other speakers' session. So if there are any more questions, happy to take it during breakout time. Otherwise, it was a very interactive session. Really loved all our conversations. Thank you so much. Should I turn this off? Should I turn this off?
That's fine.
Okay, what else?